reacting to Islam, walking 20 kilometers a day while fasting, and blood test results. This video has it all. Here's my experience of Ramadan as a non-Muslim. I'm seeing stars, I think, at the top of my vision. Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, where Muslims worldwide don't eat or drink from sunrise to sunset. It's a month of self-discipline and restraint, so they also refrain from other habits and urges, such as smoking, lying, arguing, and having sex. It is a time to get closer to God. The day before Ramadan started, I weighed myself, took measurements of my muscles, and took some photos of my physique. At the end of the month, I also got a blood test to see how the fasting had affected my body. I'd stick around for that because the results shocked me. However, Ramadan is much more than just a physical month. I wanted the full experience, so I dedicated time to praying 5 times a day and learning more about Islam. More on that later. Bit nervous but excited. Let's do this. The morning prayer is 4:20 a.m. See you tomorrow at 4:20 a.m. Time for the morning prayer. This completes the morning prayer. Right at the bottom of the page it says, "For those who do not know how to pray, please start with these beginner prayer guides." It's currently 5:05 a.m. Already feeling a little thirsty, but as my brother very smartly pointed out, make sure to breathe through your nose, get the less of a dry throat. Feeling decent. I mean, I'm not even that tired for 4:15 a.m. Let's see, if we keep doing this for a few weeks, then I'm sure that will add up. I'm just consciously being, I mean, I try to be normally, but even more, like, just grateful, just like looking at the trees and the flowers and the birds and stuff, and the sun, like, you're so blessed. Like, you have so many reasons to be grateful for your existence. I'm just going to try and get up here before the sunrise, but it's been a while since I've done that, because I've been going hard. I'm content on coming in first. God whispered in my ear, told me kill it at first. Time for the first gym workout. Let's get it. I think we're here for the deadlift. PR first. Being the absolute psycho that I am, and loving to push myself, I decided to go for a deadlift PR after having not deadlifted in months. The form left a lot to be desired, and I ended up hurting one of my vertebrae. I think this is possibly the stupidest lift I've ever done. I think this originally came from the Discomfort December Train to Failure challenge, but it hadn't felt this bad for ages. This probably wasn't the greatest start to Ramadan, and the expedition was looming only a few days away. Not only would I not be eating and drinking during the day, and having suboptimal sleep, I also had my back to worry about, as I'd be carrying a heavy pack for many miles per day. I bought the food, packed my bag, and wrote the prayers in a notebook. I'd been doing them so far, and I wanted to keep it going. I was excited, but a bit apprehensive. I started to have a few doubts. Was I crazy? I didn't want to collapse on a mountaintop and disrupt the trip for my whole team. Then I found a video from this guy, who fasted for 16 hours a day while crossing the Alps.
Days of fasting were 16 hours long, from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
If he could do that, then I could definitely do this. Throat's a little thirsty, but Allah does not burden a soul more than it can bear. I think that quote's going to help me a lot over the next 5 days. Let's get it. Okay, 6 a.m, you know the drill now. This is the morning before the expedition, so I've got about 35 minutes, 40 minutes to eat. I've done the morning prayer, things I'm probably going to be using to help me I feel fine, and
The voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering.
Transcendence of suffering. Transcendence of suffering. Transcendence of suffering. Transcendence of suffering. Transcendence of suffering. The voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering. And so then the question is there a way of being that increases the probability that you're going to move up dominance hierarchies? Well, that doesn't seem to be a particularly provocative proposition. And that has to do with something like voluntary acceptance and therefore
No way.
suffering.
this right here is what you do when your campsite doesn't have any showers. Anyway, I'd been waking up early, before the sun, eating and making sure I drank a lot of water. I kept up the prayers. I'd been doing them in the tent, and I didn't miss a single one. I started well, but by the third day it was getting tough. I was sunburnt, my lips were all cracked and dry. The sun was out, which only added to my dehydration. But I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to let all those previous days count for nothing.
I size 3 sizes up intentionally.
Discipline gets things done.
One thing that discipline definitely does help you with, it helps you get things done. And when you get things done, when you actually do things, you have more success. A big part of success is just not being lazy and just doing it. 90% of it is just showing up. Get there and start working. Like, you're not gonna feel perfect every day. If I only worked out when I felt good, I'd be a fat because there's a lot of days I don't want to do it. I mean, it's pretty much the same with everybody that actually gets good at something. There's got to be those days you push through. They're probably going to be more numerous than the days you don't. And so the benefit of discipline in my eyes has always been that through discipline, I get things done. I'm like the most lazy, disciplined person I know because I don't want to do it. Let's go. Through discipline, I get things done. The pro goes to work. Through discipline, I get things done. This is what I do.
So I managed to get back in one piece without dying or collapsing of dehydration. I even had a cheeky swim in a wild river. On the coach on the way back, we had a Muslim, a Hindu and a Christian. No, this is not the start of a racist joke. They were explaining what the different religions believed and said about different topics. I certainly learnt a lot, specifically about the Day of Redemption, prophecies in the Quran, and the similarities and differences between the religions. For the next few days, I was recovering from my expedition. I was still going to the gym and training martial arts, when I noticed something a bit odd. I was at jiu-jitsu, practicing takedowns, and I just couldn't get tired. I was doing takedown after takedown after takedown, a 4 minute of non-stop takedowns, taking it in turns, do a takedown, get straight back up, do it again, then have a short break and then do it again for another minute. And I could see the other guy was just completely out of it. He was done. He did not want to do it anymore. But I felt like I could keep going all day. I think by this point, my body was kind of used to fasting and not drinking water. And I also don't think I ate in that morning. So maybe I got more into ketosis, where my body was burning fat and producing liver glycogen. Whatever it was, it felt amazing. You may have thought the biggest challenge was over, but no, an even bigger one was coming just around the corner. Just kidding. Next, I waited for an hour to eat at a buffet while my family was eating in front of me. I stayed strong. I also ended up praying in a bathroom, which was interesting. I didn't realise it was haram at the time. It was pretty clean. Forgive me, brothers and sisters. I returned home and all was going well. I was still thirsty during the days, but it was nowhere near as uncomfortable as the first few days where I was adjusting to it. On the 16th of April, with only 5 days to go, I headed down for another ordinary Muay Thai session. I trained hard, I sweated tons and had discomfort in the bottom right side of my torso. I think it was cramp, or maybe just my organs dying from the amount of output I was doing without any water. Afterwards I felt spaced out and the top of my vision was all like bright shining points of light. Like anytime I looked up I just saw this like fuzzy white brightness. I'd never had that before. I took a cold shower and let my body recover for a bit and I seemed to be fine, but that was a bit of a scary experience. I was genuinely wondering if I was going to faint or something. I just want to say I don't recommend anyone to try and train as hard as me or complete an expedition during Ramadan. I'd say I eat very healthy, I sleep well usually, I have a good amount of muscle and strength. If you're not in great physical condition, you probably want to back off your exercise routine a bit. As you saw here, even I started to reach my limit. I'm not saying to not push yourself, but make sure to know and listen to your body and realise that if you're doing any intense exercise, this is at your own risk. Don't try and sue me if you go and do something stupid. Low intensity exercise like walking or yoga seems to be fine though. Before prayers, if Muslims are unclean, they carry out wudu, a cleaning ritual to make sure they are ready for prayer. With only a few days to go, I realised I hadn't done it yet, so I decided to do it for the experience. You wash your hands, arms and face multiple times, and it took me ages. I think I actually spent more time doing wudu than the actual prayer that came after it. Muslims are obviously much more used to it than me, so they're also going to be way quicker. I just took a while because I didn't know what I was doing. There's also a more thorough purification process called ghusl if one has been up to some other behaviour. I also tried this, which was actually a bit quicker because some of it was the same as wudu. You pretty much have an entire shower. That's also probably why it was quicker, because I knew you just basically wash everything, not just your elbows or just your ankles. I would imagine if you're doing this 5 times a day, your skin might start to react badly, but I'm sure they have some workarounds. The end was in sight. I pulled up to the hospital and ended up waiting in a queue of 30 people. It was quicker than expected and was completed with no issues. Here is my poor attempt to discreetly record my blood being taken.
Sometimes when they give you the forms, they don't tell you money from the future.
On the way back, as the sunset drew nearer, I began to reflect on my experience over the past month. I'm happy with how I performed, honestly. It was definitely felt weaker in the gym. The expedition was pretty good. Sure it was uncomfortable, but I'm really happy with how I've done. It's going to be a big celebration, it'll be fun tonight. The final breaking of the fast.
I'm going to have to wake up at like 4:20 or whatever it is tomorrow morning. Well, I guess I could. I haven't had to do it. I've been choosing to do it.
I had just one more gym workout left before the end of Ramadan. I think I'm doing this blood test with about 500 millilitres less blood, giving us a bit high, but I haven't been able to replenish with water. So. I was doing face pulls and could feel the blood almost being forced through the area where the blood had been drawn. I think the blood had started to clot where the needle went in, which was causing the weird sensation as the blood was forcing through this thicker blood. And my arm had also started to bruise. Last workout of Ramadan finished. My throat was very dry, but it was a good effort. But that's it. The final challenge of Ramadan is pretty much done. I'm going to enjoy this final iftar and prayers. So grateful, thank you.
So here it is. I can't believe it's finally here. We got 2 dates. We were going to have 3. It looks like my brother's next one. Well, not next one. No, he didn't know. It's fine. And we have our milk. Like the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's been a great journey. I'm really glad I did this. I'm going to start with the date and wash it down with the milk. 34 days of fasting, I think this has been, or maybe 35. Weird way of going back to normal, to be honest. But yeah, grateful, big respect to the Muslims. It was a good experience. I'd recommend people to do this, if you're not Muslim, at least once in your life. It does hit your productivity quite a bit. Well, actually, it wasn't too bad. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be useless, but I think I got quite a lot done. So it didn't hit productivity too hard if you're healthy, like me, and you exercise at the time. But I don't know if you're
if you're a seed oil sugar addict, it's probably going to be very hard for you because you're not going to be able to eat. But I've experimented with fasting before. I don't eat until 1 or 12 normally in the day. So anyway, without any further ado,
Now we're going to be taking a look at how my body, beliefs and brain changed during Ramadan. So before Ramadan I was hanging at around 85 kg. I've been bulking, so the weight had steadily been going up over time. I was expecting to lose some weight, probably mostly water, some fat and some muscle. On the first morning of Ramadan I was at 83.5 kilos, and in the evening, after coming back from my expedition, I reached a low of 79.9 kilos. I suspect a lot of this was water weight, as I weighed myself not long after being allowed to break the fast, so I hadn't had much time to replenish the water I'd lost. And on the final evening of my Ramadan, before having eaten or drunk water, I came in at 80.7 kgs. Many people might be worried about losing their gains during Ramadan, but I think that's the wrong mindset. As this guy said, if you're worried about gains during Ramadan, you probably shouldn't do it.
You gotta let that go during this time. Fasting and prayer. Get the most out of your Ramadan. Not worrying and anxious about your muscle and fat. That defeats the purpose. Don't fast if that's what you're thinking about while you're fasting. Don't do it. If you're fasting and you're thinking about physicality, even though it's a spiritual act, that means you're doing it for the wrong reasons and you should just stop.
Fasting can help with weight loss, but I think if that's the only reason you're participating in Ramadan, you're missing the point. Even if you do lose muscle, your body has muscle memory. As you've already had that muscle before, it's easy for your body to gain it back. It's growing the muscle in the first place, which is the hard part. Anyway, after only 8 to 9 days, I was already back at my pre-Ramadan weight of 84.4 kg. But look, I get it, no one wants to on purposely lose muscle, right? So for those of you looking to keep the muscle you have built, my main tips for you would be make sure you actually eat enough in the evenings and in the morning. I know it can be hard because you have that limited window. It may also help to throw on an eat like a bodybuilder motivational video, especially if you're tight on time. Good memories of stuffing food down my esophagus with only 5 minutes until sunrise.
We're not eating for pleasure. This is bodybuilding and you're eating for purpose.
It's hard work just to put this food down because sometimes you're not always hungry and you still have to maintain your calorie intake in order to maintain the size.
You can't train like a horse and eat like a bird.
Make sure to prioritize protein and fats and try to keep exercising. From what I've read, you only seem to need about 1/3 of the usual volume to maintain your muscle. Even though it's going to be harder for you to make gains, you'll be at least able to hold on to what you have built and maybe make some progress. The day after Ramadan, I definitely felt better in the gym. I hit a PR that I've been trying to hit for a few weeks and I felt super pumped up. The only way I can really think to describe it is almost like a wet pump. During Ramadan, I obviously wasn't drinking water, so when I was working out, my muscles felt way drier and more fibrous. For example, I was doing the bench press and all across my chest here just felt super stretched and fibrous, like it might snap or something. Obviously, as the month went on, I got used to this, but then when I drank water again, it felt really weird, like my muscles were all swollen up because I wasn't used to having, I guess, a pump so big. Now for the muscle measurements. At the start of the month, my shoulders were 44.5 inches wide. By the end of Ramadan, they measured 45 inches, and again, 1 week later, measured 45 inches. My chest started at 39.75, went down to 39 inches, and a week later went to 38.5. My waist went from 33.5 inches to 34 and stayed at 34. The measurement around my abs at the start of Ramadan was 31.5, and by the end it dropped a little to 31. After about a week, it had gone back up to 32 inches. At the beginning of Ramadan, my quad circumference was 24.75. By the end of Ramadan, it dropped to 23.5, and after 8 days, it had gone back up to 24.75. Now, Arnold always said that your calves and biceps should be the same size, circumference. And it's also said that to have a Greek god physique, you want your neck, bicep and calf to be pretty much the same measurements. So I was interested to see that mine were all very similar. Calf started at 15.25, dipped to 15, then went back up to 15.5. Biceps started at 15.5, went down to 14.5, went back up to 14.625, and neck started at 15.25, went down to 14.875, and actually down again to 14.5. And forearms started at 11.375, dipped a little to 11.25, and went back up to 11.5 inches. Now, these measurements are unlikely to be the most accurate ever recorded. I did do all the measurements before I ate food, but hydration status may have also had an impact on the size of the muscles, and some of the measurements were taken using a different, stiffer tape measure. I wouldn't draw too much from this, but I think overall we can say that I didn't lose all my gains, and anything that you do lose, you can gain back pretty quickly. So I wouldn't worry about that too much as long as you're eating enough and still doing some exercise. Okay, so now for the blood tests. A quick caveat I want to make is that blood tests are a screenshot in time and can be influenced by changes to your daily routine, such as when you ate and how you slept. Overall, my bloods look good, and I'm going to comment on the markers which were higher or lower than optimal, and I'm also going to compare the values to my previous blood work which I had done about a year ago. Okay, so first up is folate, which is needed to produce red and white blood cells, RNA and DNA, and is used to help transform fuel into energy. Mine was actually just under the reference range, which is not ideal. Previously it was 4.6 micrograms per litre, and this time it was 2.5. The normal range that it said on my blood results was 3 to 20.5 micrograms per litre, but I have seen somewhere else that the bottom range can actually be 2 micrograms a litre. Either way, it's not optimal, and I'll be looking to bump this up. From what I've read, it says that a folate level of under 3 micrograms per litre, that if you have that, a deficiency is likely. However, I don't have any of the deficiency symptoms, and my diet has a decent amount of folate in, so I'm wondering if the lack of water and food is maybe having an effect here. I also am wondering if I might have an MTHFR gene mutation, which makes it harder for you to convert things to folate. I need to look into it more, but I'll probably just end up eating a bit more liver, which is really high in folate. Next is the liver tests. My serum bilirubin was 50 micromole per litre, and the reference range they gave me was 0 to 20. So I was actually 2.5 times above the upper limit. Now that might sound concerning, but I don't think it's an issue.
Do I need to explain? Actually,
let me explain. Bilirubin is a necessary component of the body's clearance of waste products that arise from the destruction of aged or abnormal red blood cells. So I suspect the reason it was high was because I wasn't eating or drinking, so my body was carrying out more autophagy and cleaning out the damaged cells throughout my body. That is what happens when you're fasting. I also found this from John Hopkins. It says that bilirubin levels increase with fasting, so I'm really not too worried about this. I would imagine the level would start to come down again once I started eating and drinking normally. Next is ALT, or alanine transaminase, first try, which is used to break down food into energy. Mine was 33 units per litre, with the range being 10 to 33, so I was just on the upper limit. I have also seen an upper reference range of 40 units per litre, so again I'm not too worried. It's said that if retested, more than 30% of adults with elevated bilirubin, ALT or AST, will be reclassified as normal, and that repeating the tests when elevations are mild is recommended. I also found the ALT and AST, which they didn't test for, increase with strenuous exercise. And I think that's probably it, as this is probably the most physical stress I've put my body through perhaps ever. So again, I don't think this is a problem. Basophils are a type of white blood cell which are responsible for fighting fungal or bacterial infections and viruses. Previously my level was 0, and this time it came in at 0.1, 10 times 9 litres. The reference range is 0 to 0.1, so I just bounced from one end of the scale to the other. They are involved in the immune response, and my theory is that my body was a bit freaked out by the abnormal eating and sleeping patterns and the challenging workouts. Still, it was just at the top of the range, so I'm not really concerned. The transferrin saturation index shows how much iron is bound to the transport protein, transferrin, which helps to carry iron around your body. Mine was 20%, right at the bottom of the range, which was 20% to 50%. This surprised me that I was nearer the low end, as I eat quite a lot of red meat. Again, I think the fasting may be having a potential effect here. I also haven't dug into the mechanisms surrounding iron, so there might be something else going on here. Serum albumin is the largest protein component of human blood and is an important factor in the regulation of plasma volume and tissue fluid balance. The range was 38 to 50 grams per litre, and mine was 50 grams per litre. Levels are widely regarded as a mark of nutritional status, but may also be reduced due to proteinuria or inflammation. They didn't test my HSCRP, so I'm not sure what my inflammation was, but I suspect it would be lower than usual due to fasting. However, previously, my inflammation was pretty much 0, so perhaps the fasting actually aggravated my body and increased it. I did find that high levels may be a sign of dehydration. I think it's highly probable that that is what caused my high level of serum albumin. My blood would be more concentrated and more thick, so the protein component would make up a larger part than if I had been drinking water. So in the blood sample, more of that protein is going to be present. So again, not too worried about this. It was just in the range. I wish they did hormones, lipids and other nutrients, so I'd be interested to see what happened to my testosterone and cortisol. I suspect they didn't move in a particularly positive direction. As for lipids and other nutrients, I'm not really sure what would have happened there. They probably would have done some weird stuff. Overall, my body seemed to cope with the fasting pretty well and my bloods looked good. It's pretty cool to see they're even this good after a month of suboptimal sleep and nutrition. So I suppose my bloods normally would be even better. Now for the big question. Would I do it again? It was definitely an interesting experience and I would be open to doing it again in the future, but probably not for the next half decade at least. I feel like I'm in a pretty important point in my life where I need to be giving my best work to reach my goals, and that can have a really massive impact on my future. And I think the impact it had on my productivity was substantial enough that I probably wouldn't do it again until I'm a bit older. Perhaps I would do it again, but be drinking water. That was the main thing for me, I think. Or perhaps the disrupted sleep schedule. Despite saying that, I would recommend all non-Muslims to try for at least one day to challenge yourself and see what it's like for all the Muslims around the world who do this every year. Now for my biggest learnings about Islam and the mental effects of Ramadan. I experienced greater gratitude and appreciation for water, food and sleep, and it gave me more proof that I'm capable of completing challenging tasks.
You have to remind yourself of how badass you really are in times of need.
In terms of Islam, one thing that seems super valuable, which I haven't experienced from other religions, is the sense of brotherhood and community. In the Quran it says, a Muslim is a brother to another Muslim, and all Muslims I've encountered have been very helpful and supportive of me participating in Ramadan. Another thing I realised is that in Islam and in other religions is that self-improvement is built in. You're encouraged to not consume negative content.
I was shocked. I had to confirm, are you sure? These are lyrics of a song. Yes, we need to somehow get a message across to the people in the music industry to come up with good words and good songs that promote values and morals and not just speak about the organs of males or females.
The imams give advice and guidance, and you're encouraged to delay gratification. It encourages the ultimate form of delayed gratification, delaying gratification to access heaven.
What is the most important concept of self-improvement that I ever talk about? Instant gratification versus delayed gratification. The ultimate delayed gratification is the promise of heaven. Be good in this life for a better afterlife. Everything that I say comes from religion. Be a good person, be kind, be generous, meditate, be grateful, be a strong person, have a family, reject degeneracy and hedonism.
Now, this next one wasn't really a new lesson, it was more of a solidification of a previous belief. I don't know if it was just me, but God was always portrayed as some guy who's up somewhere just commanding things from above. And to be honest, that always sounded a bit silly to me. I was like, that doesn't sound right. But in Islam, Muslims cannot make an image of Allah because it's physically impossible for you to comprehend what he looks like, or if he even has a physical presence at all. And both Christianity and Judaism preach a similar thing. In the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above," which is the same sort of idea. This makes a lot more sense to me now, as I currently kind of view God as like a force or a power, not just some guy sitting on a cloud. I know it sounds kind of silly now, but I think that's just how it was always portrayed when I was young, and no one ever really explained it to me. I think Islam has a lot of great teachings, and this experience definitely made me more open-minded and appreciative of the value of religion. Thanks for all the support. I hope everyone had a good Ramadan and Eid. If you want to connect with me, check the first link in the description and pin comment. I might be able to help you with your health and fitness. Masalema al-Elika.